All right. Well, welcome to our Sercante Ungated session on Marketing Cloud account engagement versus Marketing Cloud engagement. What's the best solution for you? Amber, if you can just advance our slide here. My name is Christina Magoulas. I just have a few housekeeping items that we'll go over before we get started. We are recording this session. The recording will be shared later this week in an email, and it will be posted on the Sercante website. Everyone has joined muted. We ask that you please drop questions in the chat, but remain on mute for the session. And we would love your feedback. We love doing these Sercante Ungated sessions. We love hearing from you, feedback about what topics you'd like to be covered, how you thought the session went. So please don't be shy and share that feedback with us. As I said, my name is Christina Magoulas. I am a marketing manager and training product lead here at Sercante. I will be manning the chat, if you will, and my colleague Amber also on the line. I'll let her introduce herself. She's also going to be handling the chat with me.
Sorry, I'm muted. Hi, everybody. I'm going to be manning the chat. I'll help to pass some questions over to our speakers today.
All right. And without further ado, we will let our speakers introduce themselves to you.
All right. Amber, can you go 2 slides down? Hey everyone, I am Erin. I am the Pardot product director here at Sercante. I have been in the Salesforce and Pardot ecosphere for about 10 years. I also lead the Atlanta Pardot user group in the Pardashian Slack. So if you're ever looking for a way to connect with other Pardot users, definitely join that Slack group. And I'll pass it over to Kirsten.
Hey y'all, I am Kirsten Schlau and I lead our Salesforce Marketing Cloud practice. I've been in the business for a while in digital marketing and even have been in the Salesforce ecosystem for quite some time, even before it was ExactTarget for specifically. So really looking forward to today's webinar. So from a high level agenda perspective, we want to go through Marketing Cloud account engagement, aka Pardot, and Marketing Cloud engagement, aka Marketing Cloud or ExactTarget. With the latest name changes, it's a little confusing. So you'll be hearing us use all the terms interchangeably today. And then also we'll go through platform selection considerations. What might be the best solution for you and your organization based upon some high level considerations. And then also discuss just a few use cases where it might make sense for both. Again, this is just more thought-provoking type of things of, you may not fit into one group or the other. Maybe it's a case of both. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So some common questions that I've heard and Erin's heard and all of us from the Sercante have heard for quite some time is, do Marketing Cloud and Pardot do the same thing? Is Pardot part of Marketing Cloud? And also this, I think, is a pretty common one. Is one of them a dummy version of the other? In other words, one is maybe a smaller budget only for small businesses, and maybe, it's pretty simple. And maybe, one is better than the other. And the answer to that is not necessarily. So we're going to cover those through a little bit. Amber, if you wouldn't mind just advancing real quick, we'll click. I did put a little animation in here. So it's not straightforward. They're different. Pardot is now part of, in theory, Marketing Cloud as a system with the rename that has come out most recently from Salesforce. But, again, they do different things. There is some overlap. And we're going to go a little bit deeper on this next slide around how do they compare.
Yeah, so I know Pardot has been renamed Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, but it's just so many words, so I'm going to keep saying Pardot. So you'll have to forgive me for that. But Pardot is more focused on B2B businesses, so business to business. It is primarily used by B2B orgs, but I have seen a good bit of orgs use it for B2C, so it's not only B2B. But typically the companies that choose to use Pardot have more of a considered purchase cycle with multiple decision makers on the client side involved on whether or not to make a purchase. So there may be trials, they're going to be talking to a salesperson, and that sales cycle is going to be a little bit longer. Because of this, Pardot focuses more on email and social, and it closely integrates with Sales Cloud so you can track things like campaigns, opportunities, accounts, so on and so forth. Pardot also has a more flexible team size. So I've seen, Pardot admins, team of 1, and they control everything. I've seen teams of 30. It really depends on how your company works. And then finally, Pardot does tend to be a little bit cheaper than Marketing Cloud.
Yes, and for Marketing Cloud engagement or Marketing Cloud or Exact Target, it traditionally has been more for the B2C industry, really thinking through those that have either direct to consumer or of that self-service business model. You can think retail, e-commerce, restaurants and quick serve, right? A lot of those things that, again, maybe are not as much of that considered purchase. A lot of the time you want to be using multiple marketing channels, which Marketing Cloud does offer. So there is the native email, social, SMS, as well as display advertising. Social Studio is one item that they are going to be retiring, if you haven't heard. And a lot of the time you can find sometimes that it's being used as a standalone apart from CRM. And that's maybe because, their CRM is not necessarily something. It may be more data lakes, data warehouses, ERP systems that they're tapping into versus your traditional CRM for their business. And a lot of the times there are larger teams that are typically required to man the platform. That's not always the case, but there are several different channels. You can do quite a bit of customization. And so with customization comes a lot of things that you can tweak. And so it sometimes requires a little bit more expertise or specialization or training in the various channels, which sometimes requires folks to have more than one person doing the things. And again, sometimes a little bit of a higher price point. Traditionally, they've been more focused on enterprise clients. That has definitely changed over the years. And they definitely have some other options and pricing models that make it a little bit less cost prohibitive, as was back in the day.
So once we get into features, again, Pardot, since it is focused more on those considered purchase and passing prospects over to the sales team, it does do a lot with the top of funnel and lead management. It also provides multiple ways to kind of score and grade your prospects so you can pass them over to the sales team when they are sales ready. So you're not just sending every single person who's ever touched a marketing asset in your system. You kind of have that qualification threshold.
And for Marketing Cloud, instead of looking at it as a funnel, a lot of the time, these types of marketers are looking at things across the customer journey. And so Journey Builder is the one tool that really helps with the orchestration across multiple channels. Of course, there's automation and you can do some of that orchestration in Pardot. But again, it's just a little bit of a different lens, I would say. And so you have advantage of that native mobile messaging, SMS. You can absolutely send SMS from Pardot, but it's not a native integration. You would use a third party, which some of our clients have used, and it works out successfully. There's Advertising Studio, again, that multi-channel communication. And then in some points, a little bit more flexibility when it comes to data segregation and automation. But again, that's probably the necessity of sometimes you're having to do a little bit of data transformation within Marketing Cloud with the support of, example, Datarama, because you don't have a CRM. And so again, it's just a little bit of a different approach. So I think the summary of the slide is one is not better than the other. They each have their place. It really just depends on the approach for you and your organization. And of course, the shared components of both is email marketing, the automation piece, forms and landing pages, web tracking, and some basic social. Anything here additionally, Erin, you wanted to add?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly.
Okay. So when it comes to platform selection, there's a lot of considerations.
So some of the key decisions that are going to help you make the decision between Pardot and Marketing Cloud, I mean, most of the decisions are going to be around your sales process. This isn't comprehensive of every little thing that you should think through, but these are going to be the biggest factors. So the length of your sales cycle, is it a longer sales cycle where the sales team gets involved with the client or prospect, or is it something where your customers see something they want and they purchase it within a week? If you have that longer cycle, it's going to be more Pardot. Shorter cycle is going to be more Marketing Cloud. How many decision makers influence the purchase? So are you having a team of people who are analyzing and trying out the product before a decision is made? Or is this really just one person who is making a decision on their own? And then which marketing channels do you rely on? So if it's email and social and lead nurturing versus is it more one-to-one communications with maybe SMS text messages, targeted ads, so on and so forth. Go to the next slide. So here's some questions to ask on how organizations decide which is best. Again, is the considered purchase where there's a long sales cycle and multiple decision makers. Those companies are typically going to go to Pardot. As well as are the leads and the sales and opportunities all going to be connected and all used in Salesforce for the sales process? Then again, you'll want to use Pardot. And Kirsten, do you want to take the next one? Oh, you're muted.
Sure. So does the organization have those transactional purchases that need to be communicated across multiple channels, specifically e-commerce? If so, Marketing Cloud can be a great solution. So if you think about less of that considered purchase, I found a shirt on a website. I like it. I'm ordering it. And now maybe I have the option to not only receive my receipt via email, but also receive maybe some tracking, delivery, shipping updates via SMS or even push notification if you have an app. So that's when Marketing Cloud can really be a great solid platform of choice.
And the next consideration is marketing focused on generating leads and passing them to sales. So marketing doesn't really own the whole sales process. They just generate and qualify leads and then pass them on to sales to close the deal. If that's your case, you want to use Pardot. But if it's more of marketing is in control of the majority of the sales process and that person may never ever talk to a salesperson, then you want to look a little bit more towards Marketing Cloud. And then Kirsten, if you want to weigh in on the last one.
Sure. And last but not least here, is your marketing focused on building those long-term relationships with prospects and customers? Not to say that as a B2B organization or a marketer in general, you don't want to do that. But what we mean here is focusing on perhaps repeat purchases, coming back, being an evangelist, being a loyal customer. Again, maybe it's thinking about the price of the goods sold. Is it a lower price point? And really making sure that you're having those continuous conversations after a purchase has been made and continue nurturing. Not that, again, you don't want that from a B2B perspective or again, with more of a considered purchase. But again, maybe the number of communication touch points and frequency may be a little bit different and may need a little bit more variety, and therefore Marketing Cloud can be a great choice in that instance.
And then we get a lot of questions around, can you use both Marketing Cloud and Pardot, and why do a lot of people not use both? You can definitely use them together. We definitely have organizations that have both B2B and B2C pipelines. But when you see a company that has, both of those pipelines and they aren't using both platforms, it's typically because, they don't have a budget for both. So they kind of have to pick one and shoehorn processes into working with that platform. Or, organizations do have the budget for both, but they're not aware of how you can use both of them side by side. And then another issue I see sometimes is an organization wants to use both, but their marketing team is not really big enough to support both currently. So they have to work up to that point.
So here's just food for thought of two scenarios where organizations can use both. One example being an organization that has both B2B, so that considered purchase lifecycle, and then more of that self-service B2C customers, as well as a B2B org that maybe has some very specific multi-channel messaging needs, goals, initiatives.
Yeah, so our first scenario is an organization that supports both B2B and B2C, and this ties into the question Amanda put in the chat. So some organizations do work with both. A great example of this is banking institutions. So they may have a B2B pipeline where they are doing commercial banking and they are looking for business leaders in large organizations that may need to do all of their banking through the banking organization. And if you're on the client side of that and you're considering a bank, you're probably going to check out their materials online, make sure their rates and their services match your needs. The internal marketing team for that company will probably be scoring your activities and alerting sales when they think your sales ready. And, they can send you nurture emails so they can introduce you to their services, their offerings, how they are the right choice for your company. And once you get up to that threshold, you'll be passed off to sales, and sales may be reaching out to you to close the deal, give you a trial of their services, etc. On the other side, banks do a lot of personal banking. So just, my bank, if I'm considering switching to a new bank, I'm not going to be reached out to by a salesperson or get a long nurture on how it is the best fit for me. Most of the way that company will get my business is by awareness, sending me digital targeted ads on their services and that tie to my interests, possibly sending me some marketing emails or push notifications. Especially once I'm a client, they're going to want to stay in touch with me and tell me why they continue to be the best bank for me, so they can send me SMS messages about new offers or information about my account, as well as emails to keep me informed. A couple other examples of this is really any company that has large purchases focused on businesses and then small purchases that individuals make. So another one I always think of is health insurance. And health insurance may have one pipeline of business that is focusing on hospitals or large companies where they would offer insurance to all of the employees through the company, or health insurance may be targeting towards the individual person who is buying health insurance for themselves or for their family.
Yes, and then in this example, a B2B org that has multi-channel messaging needs. If you think maybe about a SaaS provider with a very niche target audience, they're really focused on only getting the right fit of customers. So again, this idea of not only acquisition, but then qualification is super important for them. They're going to rely heavily on lead scoring. And so Pardot is the place to do that. And then once they become that lead, we can leverage Salesforce Marketing Cloud for that and really leverage those one-to-one multi-channel communications for conversion and beyond. So if you think about it, you could have a journey where they're tapping into a mix of digital ads, targeting these now known qualified prospects. They can retarget them. They can send them emails, SMS, along with also incorporating CRM sales tasks and record updates. So one of the beauties of Marketing Cloud, if you do have it connected to a CRM system, is that you can do some of that sales one-to-one interactions if are needed, or perhaps we see that someone based upon a behavior is not interacting with a message, maybe has become dormant. Maybe that's when we assign a task for a salesperson to sign up. So there are some advantages when you do have Marketing Cloud and Salesforce connected together via the Marketing Cloud Connect. You can also start adding in some of these tasks, record updates directly within Salesforce CRM. And you can also leverage things such as Einstein, which is available in both systems, but it can also allow you to do things like behavior splits, sending people down the ideal path with Path Optimizer. So you can also glean some learnings in this instance as well. And so this is an instance where maybe they want to maximize a little bit more of that one-to-one and really have the mix of all the channels together, that you can be using both Pardot and Marketing Cloud together to maximize. So in summary, some key takeaways of when to use both, when to use one. Again, the assumption that a single business would choose one of these two options based upon their business setup and their target audience is okay. However, we feel that depending upon your core marketing channels for any business, and actually can be effective to use both. And so if you identify those use cases that make sense, it's definitely worth considering exploring both of those solutions. You still may find maybe from a timing, a budget, a people perspective, you need to stay with one. However, we do challenge that maybe you think outside the box of looking for use cases, especially if you're using Marketing Cloud in a way that maybe it's really shoehorned, it's not working for all your processes. You're maybe forsaking certain things you want to do. The goal here is to let you all know that there are potentially other workarounds by including both Marketing Cloud and and Pardot together.
All right. We actually have a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm going to do my best to ask them all and let you guys weigh in. So Ashley asks, how do you see the data flow between both? Do you typically see all contacts synced to Pardot and Salesforce Marketing Cloud? She gives an example. If I had 3 million contacts, what a awesome database if that's the case, in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, to keep things aligned and clean, would I want to recommend 3 million prospects in Pardot also?
I typically don't recommend you have the exact same database in both systems. So Pardot and Marketing Cloud, at least right now, they don't talk to each other. They talk to each other through Salesforce. So you can sync Pardot data to Salesforce, and you can sync Salesforce data to Marketing Cloud and back and forth. So typically once your prospect has gone through the initial maybe considered purchase, and now you are staying in touch with them to build loyalty and to continue getting them to use whatever product they purchased, they may want to move over to Marketing Cloud so they can be better nurtured in that one-to-one kind of format. Kirsten, anything to add there?
I agree. And I would add that, and then one of the ways that you can really keep them separate is by using record type and account type and person accounts versus account types. I actually published a blog article on a little bit more on this topic of using both and how you might be able to orchestrate so that you can also identify who should be going out of Pardot and who should be going out of Marketing Cloud. Again, to keep things a little clean, and also to your point of not having duplicate databases in both Pardot and Marketing Cloud.
Okay. We have a question from Kelly. For your clients using both systems, how do they manage a unified preference center?
That's a great question. So a lot of the time it's a custom preference center for folks that are using Marketing Cloud today. You know that the preference center out of the box is not necessarily aesthetically pleasing. And so a lot of folks already go through that route of doing a custom preference center. We probably would recommend doing that as well. And if anything, your source of truth for preferences would potentially be your CRM system, if possible. Or again, creating a page, a cloud page of some sort, where you're able then to tap into the database and look up to be able to dynamically populate. But that's a really great question, Kelly. That's one where it definitely becomes a little bit complicated, especially if you have a very robust level of preferences and making sure you get all of those use cases and permutations together. So one of the things we also recommend is trying to keep your preference center as simple as possible, especially because if you're asking folks for their preferences, they're expecting you to honor them. And sometimes when you do that, your list size or your segmentation audience will dramatically decrease in size. And so again, it's a little bit of a catch-22 there. So we really try to focus on, if you're going to ask for all those preferences, make sure you're honoring them. If you don't think you're always going to be able to do that, gather some, high level preferences, but don't overcomplicate things, especially if you have two systems. Anything else, Erin?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. The Pardot email preference center out of the box it's not great. You definitely have to do some customizations to really make it work for your brand and your prospects. And then just making sure that data syncs correctly into the CRM so it can be synced with Marketing Cloud is key.
Right. Next question. If using Pardot alone, is there a way to send massive emails through Pardot, not only through prospects, but also by having an email subscribers list?
So the question is, can you send mass emails out of Pardot to both prospects and subscribers?
I think the question is really how to send mass emails through Pardot. Oh, she says exactly. Okay, yes, go with what you were going to say.
Yeah. So when you develop your email preference center, you can set up subscription options which connect to a list. So you can email that list, any email, that fits that subscription. You can also use dynamic lists to build other lists of prospects based off of criteria, or you could import prospects to a list to build that list that way. And you can also email that singular list. And if you put both lists on the same email send, Pardot will do deduping for you and make sure no email address gets that more than once. So that way, if someone has fit your criteria list and you want to send them the mass email there, and they've actually subscribed to that list, you don't have to do that manually deduping just to make sure they don't get it twice. Pardot will handle all of that for you.
Okay. Another question. Are these tools intended for sending mass transactional emails, for example, mass emailing clients about filling an insurance form or filing, not wearing my glasses, guys.
So for Marketing Cloud, absolutely. I typically recommend if there's an opportunity to be able to send both your transactional and your commercial/promotional messages out of the same platform. To do so, you're going to be able to get some insights there on open click rate. You can understand, especially even just understanding the level of open click rate, maybe from a customer service rep perspective. So for example, there is an airline that I implemented Marketing Cloud for. All of their transactional emails also were going out of Marketing Cloud, which is super important. That's your itinerary and your receipt. And that was something like we were sending 3 million emails in a single day off that platform. So they definitely can handle that. They were traditionally using SendGrid, which is now part of Twilio. And again, you can get some of those insights. You can trigger off of those. You can understand, perhaps even if you're having issues with customer service, I definitely highly recommend, if possible, to bring your transactional emails under the Marketing Cloud roof.
Yeah, Pardot can send transactional emails as well. They call them operational emails, but it means the same thing. However, Pardot can only send them with list sends. Like you couldn't add them to a nurture of operational sends. And Kirsten, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's one area that Marketing Cloud does allow you to do that. And it kind of has a little bit more of an edge when it comes to those type of emails.
Yeah. And again, this is where, not to say that one is better than the other, but I do think traditionally Salesforce Marketing Cloud was definitely meant to handle that enterprise client with a lot of volume. So it has a lot of horsepower. So I sort of think of it as sometimes a bit of a race car. So it's meant for high performance speed. The downfall of that is, yes, we all have our driver's license, but I'm not probably equipped in the real world, right? I am, I think, a bit of a NASCAR driver when it comes to Marketing Cloud. But again, that's someone that, maybe drives like myself a Toyota Corolla every day, expecting them to take a race car around that track. It can sometimes be a little bit more difficult because you do need that expertise. But again, not to get off point with my example, definitely there's some horsepower behind Marketing Cloud for sure.
I love the surprise analogy. There was a question in the chat earlier on, I think we've probably already answered it through the presentation about using the two systems, B2B and B2C, if you have a business that's B2B and B2C. However, Amanda, if you need more clarification, please drop it in the chat and we will get to it. And in the interim, there's a question, is Marketing Cloud's costing based on number of emails or number of contacts / subscribers?
Great question. So I feel like the pricing models and what's on their website changes all the time. Sometimes you can get the pricing, sometimes you can't. So there is a base standard. You get X amount of contacts at certain levels, depending upon the edition you're using. There's also additional messages you can purchase beyond that. So it is a bit of combination of number of emails you're sending, super messages, which is a whole other thing, and number of subscribers. And then of course, if you're adding in other elements, such as advertising studio, interaction studio, which is now known as personalization, intelligence, which is Datarama, that also changes. So again, sometimes I will say this, the pricing model, or if you're working with an AE on what it actually looks like from an invoice, it can be a little bit of a foreign language, because there's bundling, there's discounts. So it's not as straightforward as you might like. However, the bundling and all of those things is advantageous as someone who's purchasing the tool. So it's a little bit of both in summary.
Okay, so the last question that I'm seeing here, but please, if there's any more, drop them in the chat. I'm actually going to answer this one. It's, will you be having a Marketing Cloud bootcamp like you have Pardot ones? Yes, we are very excited. We are working on a Marketing Cloud bootcamp. Hopefully it will launch in the fall, so be on the lookout for that. Oh, I see another question. Do you find one platform harder to learn and or manage? I am definitely not going to answer that question and pass that on to you guys.
I mean, for Pardot, I find Pardot more intuitive, but I've also, I started on Pardot. I've been using Pardot for 10 years. When I try to do something on Marketing Cloud and learn Marketing Cloud, I get a little bit lost. There's too many options. I get analysis paralysis. But I think it has to do with which one you start with and your personality type. And just, I think they can both be easy to learn. But if you start in one and then you try to do the other, you're going to be a little bit confused in the beginning.
Yeah, and I would also say almost not the opposite, but there's one part about like the technical, okay, you go here, here, and here. There's like, maybe 17 options in Marketing Cloud to get something done. As I say, there's X amount of ways to, I don't know, skin a cat. But at the same time too, I also have seen folks who are just understanding the approach and the tactics from B2B, and understanding, there's lead scoring and it's a funnel and it's not just this, self-service one-time purchase type of thing or repeat purchase. That is also sometimes those concepts are very challenging for people that have maybe used to working in Marketing Cloud. And now you're talking about more operational sales to marketing or marketing to sales handoff qualification. So I would say it sort of depends. There's a lot of certs available for both. There's a ton of training available for both, free via Trailhead. We offer some training as well. So I would say, and I agree with Erin, that it is sometimes based upon the personality.
Someone asks, I know it's pretty easy creating emails and journeys within Marketing Cloud. Is it that easy in Pardot?
I think so. Pardot has a WYSIWYG builder. So what you see is what you get. So you don't really have to write HTML code from scratch to build an email. And I find a lot of people can figure that out with just like some simple training. Pardot has also recently launched the Lightning email and landing page builders, which makes things more drag and drop friendly, and it makes them like even easier. And then as far as journeys, Pardot has engagement studio programs, which is similar to journeys. And that's really building like the decision tree of everything, all the decisions that are made, the emails that they get, if you adjust their score, change their fields, all of that. I find it very easy. I find it very easy, but I don't know. Kirsten, did you find it more difficult than Marketing Cloud?
No, I think sometimes if like I started on Marketing Cloud before Pardot, again, similar to what Erin was saying, here you go and you click on the left, here you go here. Once you understand maybe some of those concepts, you can pretty much find your way around. And then I think if anything, just using any of these platforms, right? They all have their quirks. They're different things. So again, for Marketing Cloud, from a content builder perspective, sometimes there's certain things that don't behave as they should be, especially if they're rolling out things that are new for the first time. So again, just the more time you're spending in these tools, you become a bit more of an expert. You have the inside scoop. You're aware of things and maybe some hacks or workarounds that you aren't as aware of when you're a newbie on the platform.
Okay. Courtney asks about typical timeline for implementation for each system.
So I would say on average, basic implementation, very straightforward, out of the box, 6 to 8 weeks if the organization can move pretty quickly. That's a pretty aggressive timeline. Plus then, depending upon your send volume, there could be, a 6-week minimum IP warm-up. But I've also seen where there's lots of discussion, pretty robust use case and requirement gathering and really heavy discovery, which can be very critical to the success of an organization, especially when you have multiple business units. Sometimes those are 3-month implementations, which is pretty typical as well. So I would say, putting my consultant hat on, we will work as quick as you can. I tend to think, Erin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say 6 to 8 weeks, especially if you're going to be training, the team that's going to be running the system once the implementation is done. Because if you try to just force feed your admins everything they need to know in a short period of time, they're not going to retain a lot of it. So yeah, 6 to 8 weeks is pretty good.
Okay. We have one more question here in the chat that I'm interested to hear you guys talk about because it has come up before in conversations that I've had with both of you. Have you implemented lead scoring in Salesforce Marketing Cloud? It's one of the many reasons I'm looking at adding Pardot to the tech stack in addition to Salesforce Marketing Cloud.
So from my experience, you can do custom lead scoring with Sales Cloud, which can be sometimes cost prohibitive or take a bit more time. There are third-party tools like SalesWing. I just saw that in the chat. That's someone that I've also used in the past. That's really slick and good. I've also seen folks where they're beyond lead scoring, they found that there's other things that they really want to take advantage of with Pardot. And so they end up making the decision for both. But again, if there's really just maybe the only use case that you're really thinking of is lead scoring, I've seen SalesWing be pretty successful in overlaying that third party into your Marketing Cloud platform. And actually, we've had some chats of late with them on, potential partnership and that type of thing. So if you are interested or need a contact, happy to send over our contact information for them.
So the questions just keep pouring in and we're blocked off till 12:45 Eastern. So I'm just going to keep asking them. Any general advice on the IP warm-up strategy that works best for B2B compared to MCE with B2C communications?
The IP warm-up strategy it's very unique or very particular on how many prospects you have and how many emails you send out on a regular basis. So it's going to be very different from if you have 100,000 prospects versus 1 million, or if you send 5,000 emails a month versus if you send 15,000. Pardot has a great article on it as an example for 100,000, but typically you're going to want to take, if you're moving off of an old marketing platform to a new one, you're going to want to take your most active, most engaged prospects and email them first so you can start building that solid reputation for your IP. And you're going to want to break your database into chunks so you're not sending too much too soon. And you also want to, you want to try avoid sending an email to 50 people at the same company. But without kind of mapping it out, it's kind of hard to give you like a step-by-step, but I can probably dig up that article.
Yeah, there's definitely some charts you can follow too. I think the biggest thing, like Erin said, is targeting your most engaged and then making sure that you're able to keep up that volume. That's one downfall that I see is folks that are not maybe maintaining that volume on a regular basis. And so it can be challenging because they warm up, but then for whatever reason, they stop communications, they go way down. It can be a little bit more challenging. So I very much agree with Erin on that one.
And I did find the article with the chart I mentioned, so I just posted that in chat.
Okay, we have another question. Can you speak to landing page development? And then the same person, Ben, added later, does the WYSIWYG make custom landing page design a breeze, or does it require specialized HTML, CSS, JavaScript knowledge?
Well, for Pardot, the answer is both. So if you're using the classic landing page builder, I don't believe the templates that are provided in there by default are responsive. So you would need some HTML fancy pantsness to create your own templates. If you're using the new Lightning landing page builder, it doesn't really have templates, but it has pre-populated like sections. So you can do like 1 column or 2 column or 3 column, you just drag it in. And those using that makes it automatically responsive. So that's a little bit easier to build without having someone knowing HTML and building things from scratch. It depends on how fancy you want your landing pages to get, honestly. I think with the Lightning Builder, you can definitely build fantastic landing pages without needing that heavy development. But if you're going to want to do stuff with custom components and external activities and really get fancy, you're still going to need a developer.
Yeah, and I would say it's similar for Marketing Cloud Pages. They've definitely come a long way as well. That was a newer feature they put out probably 2 or 3 years ago. I think sometimes, especially if there's form actions, different things like that, if you want to really have the look and feel match your website, there's definitely some coding there. And as Kyle mentioned, yes, Stencil is also a great vendor and partner that actually we co-hosted a party with them at Connections last week. It was very, very fun. They're the ones with the sloths. If anyone was at Connections last week, we brought the dragons, they brought the sloths when they get together. It's a really fun time. But Stencil is also a great alternative as well for template development.
Okay, I guess one more question. It feels like a doozy. Let's see if we can do this. What if your org works with multiple business units? Would a Pardot business unit sync through the CRM to the correct Marketing Cloud business unit? How does this work?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked that to me. I would think in theory, if you're using CRM as your system of truth and you had some sort of flag or field that you could share across both that indicates what business unit it's part of, you could do that. Now, that's what speaking off the cuff, that seems like a simple-ish way to approach it. I'm sure there's some other considerations I'm not thinking of.
Yeah, well, I know with Pardot to CRM syncing in multiple business units, marketing data sharing is a really easy thing to use because you basically create a field that tells Pardot which business unit it belongs in. And then you can use a flow or a formula or whatever to say, if this criteria and that criteria, put it in that business unit. So I haven't done this in Marketing Cloud myself, but I would think there would be kind of an equal thing for Marketing Cloud that basically says, if the leader contact fits this criteria, sync it to this section of Marketing Cloud or business unit or whatever.
Yeah, I would say the Marketing Cloud Connect multiple business units is a little bit more complex, but I definitely think that there's a way.
All right, we are almost at time. Ashley, I do not know the answer to your blog post question. I am going to research it. And if we do not have a blog post on that topic, we will shortly, I am sure of it. So in closing, I just wanted to tell you guys about some upcoming Ungated sessions that we have. Amber, if you could just advance the slide, because I do not remember the names of them. Okay, the death of cookies and the impact on MarTech in July, which I am personally really excited about. I have been working with the presenters on this topic, and it is going to be a very detailed and good deep dive. And accessibility in digital marketing in August, which will cover accessibility in things like email marketing and a few other topics. So we hope to see you there. Registration will be opening shortly for both of these sessions. And otherwise, just thank you so much for coming to the session and for bringing all the questions. This was awesome. And thank you to our presenters for answering all the questions and putting together an awesome deck and presentation. I hope you guys found this helpful. Definitely. We will be sharing the recording tomorrow via email. It'll be on our YouTube and our website. And, you know, keep the questions coming, keep the conversation going. We're going to be all over the place presenting at Southeast Dreaming next week, at New York World Tour. So whenever you see somebody from Sercante, we're always down to talk shop. So keep the conversation going. And thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.